Well, after a bit of a hiatus, we're back. It's First Fridays. It's San Francisco, and it's live. All right, we have an amazing lineup of poets tonight and performers. And basically, you're standing in or sitting in the oldest ongoing metal arts production studio and gallery combined for modernist design in the United States. We are in our 74th year, spanning 3 generations, and right now, as I stand here, there's a class going on. We are teaching metal arts. So if any of you are interested in taking the metal arts, we have it online right now at www.metalarts.com. SF. You can go up there and check it out. Over and above that, just so to give some background, we have been avid supporters of poets and artists and performing artists as well as visual artists, and that's why we have this gathering here. The performing artists in this neighborhood, the poets in particular, go back to the 50s. And even before that, there were performing artists going back to the 30s, the Bohemians, and then the Beats. Howl was first read right there, next door to us, on this block, and at the Place. And the Place was where a lot of experimental poetry was developed in the 1950s. So this has a history to it. We are also standing here, and this is the beginning of the Year of the Tiger, the Chinese New Year. And in the Year of the Tiger, there is a poem that was developed by Theodore Lau, who has developed poetry out of the Chinese horoscope. And so in the Year of the Tiger, the poem begins, I am the paradox. All the world's my stage. I set new trails ablaze. I seek the unattainable, and I try the untread. I devise life's music in my ambition. Come with me on my carousel ride. Set to a myriad of colors, the flickering lights. All hail the imperiled performer. I am the tiger. I am the tiger. Bong Hei Fat Choi. My haste here, I bring up Jessica Luz and her amazing crew of poets that's going to come and read for you tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to North Beach First Friday Poetry. The weather, for once, seems to be on our side. And yes, happy Year of the Tiger. I'm going to start out with a few short poems. The first one is called Siegert. It actually, I wrote it when I was asked to write a poem about chess for a magazine in Austria, which the special guest this evening, Thomas Antonic, hooked me up with. So because he is here, I thought I would read it. Siegert. It was Siegert, New Jersey, at Pat Dodd's, across from the ocean, that I first watched play chess. People play chess. I can't recall who played the game. It was 2 men, my dad and somebody or another. I jumped out of the velvet chair, got a bowl of vanilla ice cream topped with creme de menthe. I slurped it. That was the day we had to crack the lobster with the green Pontiac, and I slept in a canopy bed, crashing with waves, checking out. Lena of Estonia, European child chess champion, gave her moves up for poker. It was in the cards, and it wasn't the lobster's hands. And this is called Mzorgsky's Pictures at an Exhibition, which I wrote after I saw Mzorgsky's pictures at an exhibition at the San Francisco Symphony. I haven't read this poem in a long time. I read it for the first time last night, and it appears to be missing the first page, but so what? So, that tambourine, a little wind-up grinder, a triangle too, tam-tam, timpani, drum. One tuba is an ox-drawn wagon. It has enormous wheels. The whip snaps it. It's not inscribed in the music. The watercolor castle isn't shown. The rattle, the cymbal, a bell, trumpets, cow, off into the distance. An alto saxophone frolics alone. 35 violins, violas, cellos, the contrabass, barely set pace, glockenspiel, bone, xylophone. That hut on Fowl's Legs digs chicken. The chicks in their shells are supple pods. These canaries in helmets can tutu. Flutes twaddle, harps sprinkle fairy dust and glitter. A Jew in hat fur has teeth, metal, clock. A horn is a peony nose, oboe, bassoon, contrabassoon. Baba Yaga flies, bringing down the great gate of Kiev. Celestia, clarinet, piccolo, but once this was only the piano. And so now I'd like to introduce the first poet of the evening. Please welcome Lisbeth Bailey.
I'm really glad it's warm. To Rosemary. It's called Voice. We're fading from the outside in, revealing a glow of kind wisdom, wanting our depths understood, more than the children we were, and larger than our failings. Sages to our former savage selves, sages to those like we once were. Just in time, no matter the distance, each voice creating a distinct sound, rising in flourishing waves, joining the universal tide of unlimited voice. This one is called Old Realm. Lawmen always think it's wartime, a mantra they repeat around the world. Drink your wine and ale and lean into your anger. Raise your voice in an alarming aria. Smoke your tea. Walk along tree-lined streets to the altar with your waning tears and your mewling amens. These rites and rants belong to the old realm. Don't look up. We are what ails the earth. This one's called The Hug, and it's for brothers everywhere. This morning during my walk in the Presidio near Mountain Lake, there were two small boys, maybe 7 or 8 years old, each with an adult. One spotted the other and called his name over and over. The other's voice rose too, but it was muffled by a mask. The one ran toward the other with his arms wide. The other stopped and opened his arms to receive the hug. Their 4 little arms wrapped infinitely around. The little boys squeezed each other tight. As they held each other warmly, 2 chests breathed together Their heads were side by side, with chins resting on shoulders. Their little boy voices were noisy and indistinct, reacquainting one with the other. I hoped neither was doing it for show. I wanted love to lift each boy. I wanted there to be only joy in their breath and gratitude in their sparkling eyes. This is called Tributary. My body of hydrogen and oxygen, I'm part of the water, part of the bodies of seas and lakes and puddles after rain, of waves, waterfalls, and rapids. I drink in all of these and their natural motions. I swallow their strength, urgency, and calmness. Liquid resilience replenishes my blood and breath. It flows through my heart rhythmically. I'm a tributary of water's eternal life. I'm the water falling onto the soil to soak down and feed the roots, to grow up and out in new growth. This one's called Bloom. I hear the footfalls of runners and joggers. My mom was a jogger back in the 70s. She'd run the country roads in all weather after us 4 kids left for school. She made the local paper. I hear feet slapping flatly. There goes one running on his toes. I look at sneaker heels. They say a lot about how each runner runs. Solo runners compete with themselves. Groups of joggers take up the width of the walk. My feet walk heel toe, with some part of my soul in constant connection with the ground. Quite a feat. One. There's too much to look at, even 2 months before spring. I ignore my feet for a while. A vine with circular leaves impresses my eyes with joy. I can really only focus on one thing at a time. I shut my eyes to see Anotha's scent. I hold my breath to hear the birds and ducks. I look inward to feel my heart bloom. This last one, it's called Wild Thing, and it's for Julie. She was the giddiness and tragedy of youth. A tiny blue and white bikini hung from her bones. She had survivor eyes, and her laughter was lush with a bodiness that set fires. She reflected light like the full moon, hiding, not hiding, her originality. Today, I heard a coyote howling. She wasn't speaking to me. I stopped to listen to brush rustling. Down the road from me, a coyote leapt out and froze in elegant listening. In those seconds of sensing, a spark of original flame flashed in my heart like a wild thing. Thank you.
Once again, Lisbeth Bailey, who I had forgotten to mention is a member of the Revolutionary Poets Brigade, and she also organizes the Thalassic readings, poems about the sea, for those of you who may not be familiar with the term thalassic. It's like the waves are crashing on my tongue every time I try to pronounce it. But yeah, she organizes those readings at the Maritime Museum and also the Moby Dick Marathon reading. And so our next poet is William Taylor, who is an author of several books of poems, and an editor, and also a visual artist. And one of his books of poems is called Pretty Things to Say. And so presumably he's going to say some pretty little things for us. Please welcome William Taylor.
Thank you, Jessica. Put on my little Walgreens glasses here for these nighttime readings. This is called Like the Rest of Us. Sometimes I get mad when people stop being beautiful, even if it's mostly not their fault. You can only go on for so long, I know, no matter how tough you think you are. What with time and death and the general sorrow and madness of a life chewing at you night and day. Some folks have a good run, sure, but still I'm sad when they eventually falter and fail and become like the rest of us. I want the aging rock star to bust out with one more brilliant record. I want the old novelist to find his way through one more book that burns and wails and tells the terrible truth of things. I want the poet on his deathbed to scrawl one last line that will save me in the way I can't save myself. This is called Centuries More Alive. In some dirty old bookstore in downtown San Francisco, I found a copy of a Hustler magazine from 1976. It featured an interview with Charles Bukowski. He was in his mid-50s and just reaching the height of his fame. In the photograph, he's got a bit of a snarl on his face, a smoldering in his eyes. In the interview, he comes off as somewhat nasty and full of himself, but reading it felt like a brush with livelier times. He said some things that would have buried him now, things that would have never made it to print. For the better, you might say, and fair enough. But there was an energy there, some moxie, a kind of ragged joy that feels largely absent from these present times. And I'm a bit wistful about it all. I miss the 20th century. I miss porno magazines. I miss Charles Bukowski. And the day in hand feels kind of beleaguered and half alive, just wanting to be done with things, be done with it all, and the poet is long dead, and the young girls and the glossy photographs are old, and their bodies now just something to hide. And I open a beer just like Bukowski might, and I turn on the stereo and disappear into music from centuries more alive than this one. This is called If Your Loneliness Were a Flag, You Could Wave It. If your loneliness were a flag, you could wave it high above your conquered lands. If it were a car, you could paint it metallic blue and drive it over the cliffs of hell into a fiery sea. If it were a ship, you could fly it into the heart of the sun. If your loneliness were God, you could curse it or petition for mercy. If it were a stranger, you could turn it away at the door. If it were a heart, you could stop it. If your loneliness were love, you could steel yourself to it, toss its letters unopened into the garbage. If it were a law, you could break it or strike it down. If it were a house, you could set it aflame and watch it glow from distant hills. If your loneliness were your mother, you could pack your things and run away. make it suffer for all those years of pain. If it were a ghost, you could banish it back to the nether realms with a spell or a charm. But your loneliness is a song, and you have an ugly voice. The neighbors complain every time you try and sing. Thank you. It's called Emptiness is the New Black. The day crumbles and fails, and we're half-assed Christ nailed to the cross of whatever's left of things. We drink beer in the tenderloin and grimace beneath the sun. The great American loneliness drifts from the walls of the sad hotels where the poets fuck and die. And the latest thing we thought would save us, we burnt through it in a day. There's a guy with a boombox strapped to his bicycle playing music from another world, where you could still imagine something other than this dreariness at hand. And there's a man on a corner leaning on the liquor store. He's got enough losing tickets scattered at his feet. He could build some kind of kite or a boat and get the hell away from here. It's called The Dead. These days the dead come around more and more with their warnings and advices, their trails of crumbs. They make me nervous with their bravery, the terrible immensity of their freedom. More and more of the dead used to be my friends back when they were living. Now they know my secrets and all the things I never said. I don't sleep sometimes imagining the conversations and the gossip parlors of the void. It's Saturday night and the dead are here like they've nothing better to do. They're talking shit and singing songs. And I'm trying to write it down, and the dead keep telling me, this is not what they meant at all. This is not it at all. And everybody always talks about the silence. But it's 3 a.m., I'm nearly out of wine, and the dead just won't shut up. Thank you. This is my last one. It's called The People in the Books I'm Reading. I'm at the computer with my wine, and there's a man outside my building calling the name of someone he'll never see again. As a drunk poet send me messages telling me how they're sad about their latest poems not getting enough likes and shares, and how they're sad about their unrecognized genius and their unreviewed books. One tells me of an old lover's suicide as she spills wine across faded letters. Another hasn't slept for days. She says she's enslaved by the phases of the moon. Eddie's muse has skipped town and Ginny's scared about 30 days in rehab. Anna stopped drinking and found God. She tells me this time for good. Frank's checking himself into the psych ward and they took his dog away. Angry Face is mad because I haven't read his manuscripts. And the people in the books I'm reading are all setting things on fire and committing suicide. It's a bad night all around and I can't do much for any of it. I'm sad too. I have my own dead lovers and unreviewed books. Now they're putting the guy outside into the back of a car as I gaze into the flashing lights and pour one more wine. And when I sit down to answer one of the sad messages, I tell my poet friend not to worry too much. They'll cancel us all eventually. Thank you.
Once again, William Taylor Jr. And I see Charlie Getter lurking over there, who founded 16th Street and Mission poetry readings on Thursday nights at the 16th Street Mission Bart. But it was his birthday yesterday, so happy belated Charlie Getter. Anyhow, our next person that is going to read tonight is a special guest named Thomas Antonic, who is from Austria. And he made a documentary film about the poet Ruth Weiss. And he also just recently published a book about William Burroughs in Austria. Please welcome Thomas Antonic.
Thank you. Jessica invited me for this reading 3 days ago. So 2 days ago I translated this one from the German into English, so I released it for the first time. Let's see how it works. It's called North Beach Tragedy. And who are you? A woman at Café Trieste asks me. I am an untamed ride on a Harley Davidson without a helmet. Hot as a flambéed ice cream on a summer day at the beach. Sharp as the sun's rays focused in a magnifying glass. Igniting a fire in California. When your fingers begin to play with mine, four-handed on a piano, with which we create a sultry beauty that slowly undresses us, make sure the ocean doesn't evaporate. We are creating a new instrument that no one can teach us. We are experimenting with our hearts and letting them resound and vibrate in the whole spectrum. Our singing is an antiphon, a double fugue, binaural beats, one sound in the right ear and another sound in the left, creating a third tone in the brain imperceptible to anyone else. Awakening senses and desires until it flashes and thunders in a showdown in which we move toward each other, an unbearable and unstoppable pleasure that can only end in tragedy that began in North Beach as a symphony. When two created an image of each other, a perfect match that would never stand up to reality, but who cares about that when the first sparks fly? As long as the bubble doesn't burst, the magic continues, and it's springtime in the brain. Bullshit, she says. You're a liar. And we recognize each other in our bodies and in our minds, a new third spirit that emerges from our togetherness. If you were a violin, it could only be a Stradivarius. Yes, if you were a violin, I must be Paganini, the diabolical violinist Devilette you. Don't talk to me about landmines or termites. I don't even want to know about deadlines. We sit side by side on a bench, and between us the snake you want to run away from. But I say, stay calm, don't frighten it, while it snakes its way between us, and don't let it sell you the story of the apple again. I thank the woman for biting into that apple. Otherwise, we would still be sitting in that snake kindergarten that the gullible referred to as paradise. But this way you appear impressed by my snake charming, and let me taste your peyote. And at least we know that the Southwest once belonged to Mexico. But what does that mean, Mexico? What are we to do with our post-nationalist nostrils? With our post-nationalist intercontinental flights melting the ice across Greenland? We can't be helped. We go through this like any other city. Trap, trap, trap. You could be lurking around any corner, especially since I've stopped looking for you. I kiss your hand and walk into the lobotomy with my open eyes. Raw spaghetti is only shared by poor cooks. You lure me into a trap, into which I fall with my eyes open. Half dead, I shuffle through the streets like a zombie, reeling with happiness and loss of balance. If I lie down in bed, I can't sleep. If I sit down at the table, I can't eat. Every night you leave me, every morning you forgive me. I'm just a transmission tower sending out radioactive waves with signals, like sunbeams focused in my burning glass and ignite the dope in my pipe. Bullshit, she says. You're a fucking liar, that's what you are. But you're not made of sugar either. But what else are you made of? Are you human or voice? Frequency or thinking device? word and writing, or flesh and blood, homonyms or hormones. I don't want anyone to miss their connecting flight just because I think I'm floating on cloud 9 in the heaven I haven't even experienced yet. I refuse to go into space with Jeff Bezos and his rocket that looks like a dick alongside Captain Kirk. I also stay away from NASA, which at least chased the music of Navajos, Pygmies, Raga and Bach into space with the Voyager. But more than 40 years later, they think of nothing better than to launch the probe Lucy, with quotes from Lennon, McCartney, George Harrison and Ringo Starr on a golden plaque in the direction of Jupiter, as well as the question, who wants to live forever, for which Brian May is given as the author. As if these messages intend to tell the aliens who happen to discover this probe on an excursion in the indeterminate future that they need not bother any further. Those who sent this flying object off have by now annihilated themselves anyway, and have long since disappeared from planet Earth. By the way, a poem by Amanda Gorman can also be found on the plaque. But as a white person with a dick between his legs, you're not allowed to comment on that. The really relevant questions don't care who asks them, and answers are nothing more than gateways to further questions. You become a magnet when you give up your ego and begin to float with the incorporeal beings who are not of this earth and speak a language that was spoken before the Tower of Babel, in parentheses, without words. Perhaps it is music, a melody from outer space that is calling me, but I don't trust it, and I think my fevered mind is hallucinating, and it's really just free jazz or some other improvised insanity in which your thoughts are brushing the back of my neck. Thank you.
Once again, Thomas Antonic. And our next poet is Jamie Proctor-Zhu, who is a very well-respected Chinese translator. Please welcome Jamie.
Hi everybody, thank you so much for inviting me to be here, Jessica, and it's so great to be here among a lot of beloveds and people I don't know, so I'm happy Year of the Tiger. I've been mostly working on translations lately, so I'm going to start by reading a translation of a poem by the Chinese poet Xiao Xiao. She grew up in Sichuan, but she lives in Beijing now and is also in Hainan sometimes. So I'll read the English and then the Chinese. Say to the soul, you need to make yourself happy 1,000,000 times faster. Remove the shackles of long-held delusions from your neck and throw them away. When you open your eyes from the window of long-held suffering, take a deep breath and rub your veins in the most subtle, real waves deep in the soul. How much clamor comes from your imaginary enemies? How many obstructions come from your blood relatives? How much necrosis comes from your dark parts? You can't make everything become possible. You only have one body, one heart, scattered in the headwind. Write happiness on the back cover of suffering. Don't let the heavy burdens in your life be fatal. Live purely for yourself once, at least for 60 seconds, at most for the rest of your life. "对灵魂说，你要以10万倍的速度快乐，把长年累月的 Oh, hold on, I need my glasses, sorry. Getting old all of a sudden. Okay. 对灵魂说，你要以10万倍的速度快乐，把陈年累月的妄想枷锁从脖子上取下来，扔掉。当你从炼狱的窗口睁开眼睛，一次深呼吸，摸一摸自己的血脉，在灵魂深处最细腻、最真实的波动，有多少杂音来自你假想的敌人？有多少梗塞来自你的血亲？有多少坏死来自你阴暗的部分？你不能让一切都成为可能，你只有一副肉身，一颗被逆风吹散的心，在苦难的风底写上幸福，让生活中那些重负不够致命，纯粹为自己活一次，最短60秒，最长下半辈子。Okay, and since I've only been doing translations, then I'm going to read some of my older poems. So the first one is for my son Dylan, who's at NYU now, so sending him thoughts in New York. Half moons. He held up his half-eaten sugar cookie and proudly said, "Look, Mommy, a giant half moon." We sat on the swing together, looking at a yellow half moon in a midnight blue sky. He asked why the sun needs to sleep and why the sun and the moon cannot sleep together. Tonight, he closes his eyes as soon as the two sides of his story fold shut. I see two little half moons resting above curled lashes, black as the air outside. I breathe in, knowing I cannot die, not here, not tonight. He's still so young. I feel his chest rise and fall, bones expanding, contracting like stars, adjusting to changes in light. Okay, and this last poem I'm going to read for Jack, so dearly missed and loved, and for Aggie, and also for all my beloved North Beach friends. This was a poem I wrote while living in Beijing, and it uses, it has a translation of one of Du Fu's poems incorporated into the poem, and I wrote it after a friend had told me about his friend drowning in a river in India, and he had tried to go in to recover the body, and like the friend's body had fallen apart. So anyway, this is a poem that I wrote after that, and it uses I think 4 different words in Chinese that are pronounced liu, but they have 4 different meanings. So willow, liu. 2 orioles call from the green willow. 2 boys cross a river, returning home. A boy slips. Yellow feather waves beat against weeping branches. Beneath a flurry of orioles, one boy reaches the other shore. Liu, willow, liu. One boy reaches the other shore. 2个黄鹂鸣翠柳. Liu. A line of egrets ascends the blue sky. A line of words enters the river's flow. In green waters, A friend searches for a friend. From his mother's window, the snow of 1,000 autumns accumulates on the west peak. Why this need for a body to burn, to bury, to burn? Liu, flow, liu, 2个黄鹂鸣翠柳. A line splits in 7 directions. A letter, a character, collide against the stone's gray surface. All he finds is his friend's face. He carries it in his hands, all he has to hand to a mother. The snow of 1,000 autumns on the west peak, anchored in the doorway, a boat from 3,000 miles east. Liu, to remain, to retain, to stay. Liu, to keep. 2 orioles call from the green willow.
Thank you, Jamie Proctor Zoo. And next, please welcome Michael Koch, who in addition to being a poet, is also a translator, and I think he plays the drums. And he's also an artist, and he recently had a show at Vesuvio Cafe. Please welcome Michael Koch.
Well, thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to be here. This is entitled Sloth Like Sleep or Youth, a thick sap of flame in our veins like a lazy dog in heat as the whole chingadera burns down. A sage says we don't own our children. We borrow them briefly, then return them dog-eared and overdue. Me, I wake up each morning like a stone dropping from heaven. I don't know my ass from an onion. Whenever I see a woman reading Beckett in public, I pretend to be a blind man with perfect pitch and write my name with a twig in the sand. A cat life. I will spend 144 lives with you, each a cat life, 9-dimensional and filled with dying. Your hair slips through my fingers like a fortune, the jewel in a cat's eye as it waits for a bird to falter. I will spend 144 lives with you, each a cat life, 9-dimensional and filled with dying. In a burning forest, at night, rugs and insects restlessly sigh. The broom shakes out its hair in the dust. The moon slides against the window. The hands of the clock glow like deer in a burning forest. This is called The Heart is a Sparrow-Shaped Gland that moves freely inside the body. Night falls like an exhausted field hand. Someone is dreaming of tongue fried in butter, of starlight on pedestals deep underground. Our spines leak sawdust in a million suburban closets. There are hundreds of known uses for the peanut and hundreds unknown. There is sleep and there are dreams. In dead of night, birds of awesome plumage take wing. Thank you. This poem is called Fulano de Tal. It's a Spanish phrase meaning, the French equivalent is tel, meaning like any Tom, Dick, or Harry, John Doe or anybody kind of thing. So, Fuluno. The other thing is, there's a name in there, Atom Bomb, Pepsi Cola Jones. Well, I was in Central America in the mid-'70s, and there was an article, maybe it was in El Salvador, in a newspaper. It said in the Mississippi Delta of the United States, there was a kid who had the name Atom Bomb Pepsi Cola Jones. And even in Central America, they were going, wow, those North Americans are way out there. You know, so. Fulano de Tal. On paper, I'm Fulano de Tal. In my heart, I'm Atom Bomb Pepsi Cola Jones. A nobody with deep thoughts and a soul like scuffed shoes. Lush interiors, sick with flora, poetry backed up like sewage. The odd numbers get under my skin. My heads are night skies and hum quietly in the background like power lines. Vigilance has fractured my sleep. I climb out of the fissures nightly, wet, cold, primordial, a figment of my own imagination. But the details are still there, wood, mist, dirt, joy, so succulent, I think I'm being eaten by a panther. I ache for what the wind mumbles, its green ulcerated tongues and rich desserts, the mirages, beehives, and clouds. All the gods we have ever imagined exist, even more real than the homicidal frenzy of their followers. Who can tell truth from fiction? The naughty twins of chaos, the flirtatious angel of death, inert rock, a numinous entity subtly breathing. Thanks, and this is called The Market's Invisible Hand. Of course, you know, we've had great luck designing our lives to the dictates of the market's invisible hand. When people complain about sex on television, what they're packing hotly into small rooms is mutiny of the gearbox and the end of bees. Meanwhile, Our Lady of the Silk Purse battles the sow's ear on the cooking channel. Learn accounting at home, says the ad. Enjoy abundant hair and disturbing beauty. Make a perfect cup of coffee while drawing blood. As for that eternal erection, just send $49.99 to Dr. Jesus. So I'll conclude with a couple more. This is entitled 1/31/06. This is the third day of one year, the 31st day of another. My lucky number is running amok. I'm lucky day and night, night and day. Who can I thank? I've got sheer luck. I'm pretty as a battered yam. I am what I am. And I'll conclude this one, a poem I wrote for a dear friend who's no longer with us, Ken Kagawa, 1956 to 2019. It's entitled When You Left. You left us looking for our souls on your garage floor amid the tchotchkes and debris. You left us a choreography of tropical clouds and a crotchety cattle dog herding bulls through the labyrinth. You left us a teardrop like a rising sun, uncut diamonds in rain barrels of brandy. You left us dazzling white sand secreted by fish in their dreams and cigar boxes full of Cadillacs. Such mad generosity, such rough-hewn kindness. Your wine never went bad, and you left us wanting more. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael Koch. I don't know if I want to really hear more about Michael's knowledge of unknown uses for the peanut. But anyway, we're gonna conclude the evening with some music from Francisco. That is his name, one of three Franciscos that I know, Francisco Mavarez, who is actually from Venezuela, but he lives here in the neighborhood, and I originally met him playing guitar outside of Specs Bar in the alley. So please welcome Francisco.
How you doing, guys?
The originals, are they originals? You want to sit?
Yeah.
You're playing originals, right?
Yeah.
And he's gonna play 2 original pieces for us.
How you doing, guys? Well, this one is called, let's go down to business. This one is called A Real Woman. A real woman can make you feel alive. A real woman, you can live the life. She always look at you in the eye. She makes no question, she got no doubt. Real woman can make you cry. I'll give you the strength so you can face tomorrow. She's no son, she's out there with me. She never cared if I'm down. She never used to loaf around to work. Always let you know where to stand now. For the real woman, I wrote this song. The real woman can handle love. A real woman can make you see what's all about. A real woman is what I look like. Come on, guys. And you say that too. Thank you, guys. And this one is called Amy. I don't want to work on Sundays. Who does? Sometimes you need that space to keep your head in place. Maybe just another day for you. But for me, it's another state of mind. It's the day when I love to play guitar. Someday there's a day when I can pick out my head. So had a good time, show what kind of a man I am. Someday there's peace, someday there's scream. Some days when I realize I'm free. Please save me, I don't wanna work that day. We'll be down on Sunday, take a part of my life away. You can always count on me. I'm for real, you will see. Yet you will see I'm as real as a human could be. Thank you guys. Thank you very much.
Once again, Francisco Mavera. And that concludes February's North Beach First Friday. Thank you once again to all the poets and the musician. Thanks to Macchiarini Creative Design. And thanks to the weather and the tiger. And thank you, all of you, for being a great audience. Everyone, please have a great night. Check out the music down the street and continue with the good vibes and the party.